let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what type of law you practice, and then we'll dive into this lunch and learn about how to use a lawyer.
Absolutely. I'm Justin McNaughton. Jaron, I'm excited to be here. Uh, I I represent mostly startup technology companies, and where I practice is in that intersection between operating a new company, kind of an entrepreneurial company that has a lot of intellectual property, or has that angle. So that's the type of client that I usually represent. And over the years, working with different classes that have come through Corner to Corner, this has been a kind of one of my favorite groups to work with, and see a lot of the excitement and a lot of the things that you all are doing. So I'm excited to support that. And this just came out of one of our conversations as we were trying to figure out, like, how do we, what are some things that we could present on or talk about that would help the community at large. And it's really this basic concept of, how do you use a lawyer? And so I'm excited to kind of chat about this with you.
Very cool. Well, me and you have talked. We talked about the fact that you should make sure that the lawyer's expertise matches what you need. And one great example that you discussed was, a DUI attorney is not going to be proficient in contract drafting. Can you kind of speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a pretty common, and I run into this all the time. I'll be talking to somebody and they're like, "Oh, my cousin's a lawyer, so they're going to help me," and the qualification being, that they're the person's cousin and they're a lawyer, right? And really, if you're starting a new business, there are specific things that you need your lawyer to know, and lots of lawyers don't ever do startup work. They don't ever work in this field. So the example you gave is, if you're looking for if you need to have an agreement written for your company or for a client or a customer, finding a real estate lawyer is not going to help, or as you said, like a UI lawyer is not going to help. Like, those people have very, very specific fields that they're very good at, and those fields don't necessarily overlap. So you just want to make sure that that the lawyer you pick actually has some expertise or some proficiency in what you need.
Yeah. So I want to kind of piggyback off that with a question. So actually, what are a few questions or I guess type of due diligence that a entrepreneur should do kind of before actually landing on a lawyer? Are there a few questions they should ask to make sure that this person has been practicing long enough, or should they just read the website? What should they do when looking for a lawyer?
Yeah, so honestly, one of the first things, most clients come through word of mouth. So usually it's asking your friends, asking people at the academy, asking around to see who people have had a good experience with. That's probably the primary thing. And then you can do things like, when you're on the phone with them, you can tell them specifically what you're working on. A lot of attorneys will do a few minute kind of intro, just call without charging, and in that explore, like, what, feel free to ask them what they've done in the past, like what kinds of companies they represent, what's their focus, that sort of thing. It's all fair game.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So because you are paying for that lawyer, and we'll hop on that in just a second. Actually, we could maybe hop on it now. So you pay for a lawyer's expertise by hour. Man, that sounds like it can get expensive. So if you make good use of their time, it will be money well spent. So if you can kind of, I guess, let's deep dive about, payment per hour. It can get expensive, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it can. And so that's why it's also important to find somebody that understands your field and can provide does this all day long, right? That can do the things that you're needing, because then they've done it so many times that they can do it quickly and they can do it efficiently. they're, big companies a lot of times will just hire a lawyer, right? Who is there, or they'll have a team of lawyers. Smaller companies will tend to they'll just do a normal retainer or a normal hourly engagement with a lawyer or a law firm.
Mhm.
And, if you have something comes up, maybe you need 2 hours of assistance this month, and maybe next month you need 10 hours of assistance, and you just sort of budget it as you go. But the idea being that, lawyers are expensive. There's no hiding that, but you don't need to hire a lawyer onto your team and take the whole cost. The idea is you just buy as you need it. Same with accountants.
Okay, cool. So you brought up one thing that I know a lot of entrepreneurs just starting off don't think about. One, because like we said, we all know that a lawyer is expensive. So what would be the benefit, I guess, of expecting to pay a retainer fee or getting a lawyer on retainer as opposed to just getting them to do one thing for you?
So so the question that you raise is actually something I think we should explore, because in other industries, there's a concept of, like with a marketing person where you have like a retainer and you pay like a monthly fee and then they do your work and then that kind of thing, and you keep going. Lawyers, there are some industries where lawyers do similar things like that, but in most industries, it's purely hourly. And so the retainer that, if you're asked to pay a retainer, it's important to find out, like, okay, is this just a retainer, as in it's used to kind of guarantee the fees, right? Like, because usually lawyers will require a retainer, meaning that you've got to put some money and they put it in escrow, but they usually bill against it hourly. So it's not like, and normally it's refundable. So if the lawyer thinks that your project is going to cost, say, $2,000 to complete, the lawyer may ask you for a $2,000 retainer. And then if it ends up being $1,500, then the other $500 is refundable or it can go towards future projects. The flip side is that if it costs $2,500, then you may still owe some money, right? The retainer is not usually the fee. It's usually meant because it's really meant because the lawyer may not know you and doesn't know who you are. And so then lawyers get stiffed like everyone else.
Gotcha. So, well, with that being said, if for instance it is like a $2,000 fee, but it ends up that the work is only $1,500 worth, is that something that an entrepreneur needs to put in like a contract or with a lawyer or something to make sure that you're paying attention to when the lawyer, does the contract up front with them?
So, when I do an engagement agreement with a client, usually it's a very basic, it says it's hourly fee. And then when we get going on things, good practice is to ask the lawyer. If the lawyer doesn't tell you, ask, okay, what do you think it's going to cost to do this agreement, right? Or what do you think it's going to cost to form my company? Or what do you think it's going to cost to file this document or these trademarks, whatever it is, and the lawyer should have a decent idea of what it's going to cost or be able to give you a range. And that's usually where the retainer comes, is it's usually like, hey, I think this is going to cost about this much. And so we'll do, I'm going to ask for that for a retainer. And then it could take a few months to complete, or it could take a few days.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. So I am talking with Justin, who is giving us the lowdown on how to use a lawyer. We are just getting started. So if you have some questions, I see a lot of you have joined us. Pop them in the chat and I'll make sure that I'll get those questions answered for you. If you're just now hopping in, again, I'm talking to Justin about how to use a lawyer, and we're going to keep on rolling. But shout out to, I see we got a lot of people joining us. Jessica Adams, what's going on? Cindy Pride, what's going on? Nene, fabulous. I see you. What's going on? It's a lot of individuals joining us, and I'm excited to see everybody. But Justin, let's keep rolling here. So one thing that you and I discussed was about being responsive. We said if you can respond while your project is still fresh in the lawyer's mind, you will save time and money. if you make them constantly follow up with you, you will end up paying extra. So, I mean, I guess it's important to check your emails and respond as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so there's that you get into a sometimes people get into this strange thing where, you have hesitancy to respond to your lawyer because you're like, okay, I don't want to incur fees or whatever if there's uncertainty. So I think what the overarching thing is to have a good discussion, like, and know how expensive, know what your lawyer's going to charge and for what types of things, that kind of thing. If they're going to charge for, most lawyers will charge for reading and responding to emails, right? But they may not charge for other things. That, everybody's different. So, but getting to your question, if you're working on an agreement, if the attorney goes through, drafts up everything that you've asked for, and sends it to you, and sends it to you with 10 questions, right? Like, say there are 10 things that the lawyer needs to know to finish it. If you respond within a day, the lawyer still remembers, is still fresh in his or her mind, everything that you've gone through. If you wait a month, the lawyer is not going to know what, he or she's going to have to go back and like reread through it. And it's not like it's going to take a massive amount of time, but still, when you're paying for somebody's time hourly, you can save 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, and 20 minutes there adds up.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were finishing up a thought there, but yeah. So, I mean, I hear that it's in the atmosphere that, hey, with a lawyer, make sure that you're strategic with how you proceed. Because again, like you said, being responsive and understanding that there is a retainer fee, you just want to make sure you get the most bang for your buck. Here's a good one to think about. I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to write their own documents for lawyers to review. And we said that your lawyer should have templates and documents that he or she is familiar with. So it's actually cheaper to let the lawyer come up with the documents. So is this meaning don't go to LegalZoom, or what does that mean?
So a lot of times, let me give you an example. I mean, and this is a completely natural tendency. I've actually done this. Like, I'm guilty of this myself when I've hired, because even lawyers hire other lawyers to help them with projects they don't know, right? Like, so, so I've been guilty of this as well, right? Where I'm like, oh, well, I can draft this. And then, if usually a lawyer will tell you like, hey, I have this form, it'll be cheaper if we use it. And the idea is just that if your lawyer does this all day long, when you come to them and say, hey, this is my deal, this is what I'm working on, or this is the type of company I want to form, these are the things I need, or I don't know what I need. If the lawyer practices in an area, they're going to have all kinds of forms. They're going to have all kinds of things they've worked on before. And keep in mind that the idea is, since you're paying for them by the hour, you want them to work with documents that they're familiar with, right? Because that's going to save you time, which is money. And it will save you more time and more money than if you create a document, send it to them, and then the lawyer needs to read through your document, become comfortable with it, then go make sure, okay, what's missing from this or what isn't right, and then add those things in. All of that actually ends up being more expensive than if you had just had the lawyer kind of run with whatever forms they would recommend. And I would say that one of the primary things, excuse me, that your lawyer should be doing is actually helping you figure out what the documents are that you need. I mean, it really shouldn't be you suggesting a document necessarily, because that's part of what makes this process efficient, right? Is if your lawyer has experience in that particular area, they should be able to pretty quickly be like, okay, based on what you're telling me, we need this kind of document, and here's the one I recommend, and you move forward.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good. So I want to take a pause break and get to some of the questions, and then me and you'll dive back in.
Absolutely.
Here. Well, Nene, you did say you had a lot of questions and we'll be here all day, but go ahead and ask that question. But Jessica had a question about contracts. She said, is it better to draft your terms and have the attorney revise it, or is it better for them to just draft your terms from scratch? So,
And
I mean,
that's,
should they come
yeah,
to the table with some thoughts and ideas?
that's a perfect example. So usually the most efficient way, and this can depend, like I will caveat that if you're working on something weird, right, which is exciting, I mean, everybody likes to work on something that's new and different, whatever, then this won't apply. But for a normal, if you're asking your say you want terms and conditions for your website, or you want terms of a sale for your products that you're selling, that kind of thing, really the way that probably the most efficient way to go is maybe an email to the lawyer that says, hey, here's what I need, or it could be a phone call. I'm selling this. Here's what I'm concerned about. Here's the price will be different every time, or the price is going to be whatever it is. All those terms, and then the lawyer should have something that they're familiar with, that they can quickly turn into your kind of custom deal. Like you really want to only pay to have them customize, like let's call it like the last 20%, right? You don't want to start, you don't want to have them build something just, that, you don't want them to just be sitting there like freehanding a brand new agreement. That's not how usually this works. And so usually it should be cheaper to have them provide the document.
Okay, that's good. So you don't want to just tell the lawyer, hey, I have I don't know, a trucking company. Can you write me up a term? You want to come with some information, some foundational components of your business, and let them fill it in, correct?
Right. And then so if you playing on your example, say that you have like a trucking or delivery or maybe a moving company, that's important for the lawyer to know. And then the lawyer will come back to you and say, oh, you know what? Okay, so for this, you're selling services. So we want to do a services agreement. We don't really want this to be negotiated by people, but we do want everybody to sign it because it's got some waivers and that kind of stuff in it. And so then the lawyer can come back to you with a specific terms, and then you can talk about, okay, how do I implement these? And then you'll start to recognize different industries, things that are customary.
Yep.
And part of these are driven like this, right? Like when the moving company shows up, you've either like, you've either signed something that was on a pre-printed form or through their website or whatever. Like there's not really a bunch of negotiation that happens, and that's intentional. So
Okay.
setting it up for your own company is important.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's good information. We had another question that came in. You may or may not know this, but are there any organizations, and this is from Montoya Martin, are there any organizations where legal services are like a monthly subscription, so they are always available?
Yeah, they are. Here's what I would. I'm not entirely familiar with them. Most lawyers charge hourly, and the thing about it is that the longer that you work with a particular lawyer, as long as they're in the right field and you get along, the more efficient this process gets, because they know your business. Like really, you're sort of bringing somebody, you have to look at it as bringing somebody into your company who is going to provide a very specific type of expertise. So, and that's what you're paying for in the long run, is somebody that understands your business, can help you like figure out how to solve problems for your business and figure out what the agreements are that you need and the way that should be structured, that sort of thing. My concern with some of the services that are out there is you may not get the same person every time. You may, there may be, maybe a very limited scope of things that they'll do for you. And I feel like you may save some money, but you won't get somebody who really understands your business at the end of the day. So there is sort of a trade-off with that. But I'm sure you find it. And there are lawyers that will do a monthly, kind of a monthly just retainer, and that's fine. You just want to monitor it as well, right? And make sure that you're getting your money for it. Usually you'll get with most lawyers, you'll get a statement. It's every month, and it will be broken out in like 6-minute increments as to what the person was working on. So you can see what they did, how much time it took, and that's how it normally is.
Okay. Okay, cool. I'm gonna dive into our list a little bit more. We do have a couple of questions. Nene, I will get your question answered. I see that. So give me just 1 second here. But I think some of this we kind of alluded to. But we did talk about we didn't talk about follow your lawyer's lead on methods of communication. Sometimes a phone call is more efficient than an email. Sometimes an email is more efficient than a phone call.
Yeah, so this one now, and we talked about also the exception to this is that if you don't mind, I mean, there are some clients who are really worried about keeping the price down, and there are other clients who don't care as much, and so you can move this around, right? But if your lawyer has a particular way that like things get into their workflow and then get done, right? Like it'll save you some money just to fall into their normal workflow, right? Otherwise you might actually be, I'll give you an example. I don't do a lot of, I have clients who text me, but that's not my normal workflow. And so I always tell people, like, if you want to get my attention and you need something urgently, or you need it, to send me an email, because if somebody sends me, say they send me like 4 texts with these parts of the deals, and then they send me an email with the rest of the deal, and then we have a phone call and there's the other part of the deal, all of a sudden you can see like it's going to take me a bit more time, because I've got to remember, okay, I got some of the stuff over here on my phone, I got to figure out, and I got to go find stuff in the email, and then I've got my notes, you know what I'm saying? And so in a way, you're trying to figure out, like, how do you get the stuff to all the information that's needed to the lawyer in as efficient a way as possible, and in a way that works into their normal workflow. And that's going to bring your costs down.
Yeah.
Because it's the way that they normally work, right? Whereas anytime you're doing something that doesn't fit, like it just increases costs, right? Because it makes the process less efficient.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense though? I mean, it's not something you think about, but
no, that makes a lot of sense, because again, hey, entrepreneurs, what it's boiling down to me is you need to be efficient, effective, organized, and prepared to kind of get this process, I guess, not done as quickly as possible, but done in a way to where you're getting, again, the most bang for your buck. And the lawyer, actually, it sounds like, Justin, the lawyer wants to help you do that. They're not trying to stretch out, I guess, an ask for too long. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I mean, it certainly gives me anxiety, right? Like when I have a new client and you see this happening, right? And so usually there's a conversation that'll happen, right? Because you'll see like somebody will send an email, and that they're intentionally trying not to like send a really long email, right? Because they don't want to pay you to read it. But then all of a sudden you'll have 5 follow-on emails. And so you end up in the same kind of place, but sometimes it is more efficient to have like a really well-written summary email, and then you can refer back to it and that kind of thing. That it would be, people think like, oh, a text is really short, so it's cheap, right? Like they're not going to spend a lot of time. It's a text, but sometimes you can't get all the information you need. So then it ends up being, an entire text conversation that is back and forth, and can actually be longer than just giving the attorney a kind of an email with everything that you needed.
Gotcha. Now this next one, I'm kind of wondering if an entrepreneur should even go to a lawyer if they're not sure of what's going on here. But it says if you don't know what you need if you don't know what you need, that is okay. You can describe the facts surrounding what you're trying to do. The lawyer can figure out the rest. That sounds like it is going to be an expensive transaction with a lawyer if you come to them and you don't know exactly what you need.
So, and there is, when we were talking about this is a little bit exaggerated, but it's not much, right? Like usually you're going to have a specific topic, right? So you're not booking like an afternoon where you just tell them about your whole adventure and how you got here, you know what I mean? And it, you know, unless you really just need to burn money. And if you do, then that's a great way to do it. But you're really just looking for, okay, I know I need an agreement for this part of my business, right?
Yep.
And so I don't know what the agreement looks like, or if it's even an agreement or what it is, but here's my concern. And a classic, here's an example I'll give you where clients usually are pretty good about this one is let's say that you have a business and it would be, let's say it's some sort of like gymnasium or some sort of thing like that, right? And you're like, hey, okay, I know that somebody might get hurt. I don't know what to do about that, but somebody might get hurt because people are coming in here. We're doing classes, we're doing whatever it is. People are jumping around, people are doing all this stuff. I don't know what I should do, but I have that. So that's, you know, we've just now talked for maybe a minute about that, right? But as the lawyer's already going to know, okay, we need some kind of a release. We probably need to build that into an agreement that everybody signs, right? So that you have that in there, and then that's really all there is to it, right? And that's what I'm getting at, is that you have to, you should think about, if you feel like there's a problem or something that should be addressed, you can come to the lawyer with just a short description of what the facts surrounding it are, and the lawyer should be able to provide you with a solution. And often that's the most efficient way, right? Because if you spend a bunch of time like Googling it, and this is kind of like going to the doctor, right? Like if you spend all afternoon Googling all of the possible diseases that you could have, and then you go to the doctor and the doctor has to like explain to you why you don't have these other 5 things, and you probably have this sixth one, it takes a lot more time. Now, most people aren't paying a doctor hourly, but for lawyers it is. And so you want to try to figure out how to have that conversation happen, and then rely on a lawyer's expertise to help you solve and identify even the problem.
Gotcha. So we are talking with Justin about how to use a lawyer, and I'm kind of multitasking, looking back and forth at questions, and having a phenomenal conversation with Justin. Let me ask a couple more of these questions. So one question was, I hired a business consultant, but pretty much our agreement was verbal. But if there's no actual contract, can I sue?
So that's pretty specific.
Yep.
That's pretty specific to, and I'm glad that
I
don't know who it is, that kind of thing. But you know, you can have agreements. This is an important thing to talk about, though, I think, is that even if you don't spend money and go talk to a lawyer about just day-to-day things for your business, you're still going to have agreements with people. It's not like you can avoid having agreements. And in this case, you absolutely have an agreement with whatever this consultant is, because presumably you've been paying them and they've been doing something. So there's some agreement there. It's just not written down. So what you're trying to get to is a place where you do have written agreements with everybody you're working with, so that you have a better chance of knowing what happens when things go south. So, you know, that's what we're trying to get to. And as to the last part of that, I'm going to intentionally not answer it. Like, I don't know the facts, so I don't know if there's anything there that could be sued, but but you know, a written agreement does not mean, you know, if you don't have a written agreement, doesn't mean you don't have an agreement. It just means you don't have a written agreement.
Gotcha. But and you're a smart man not answering that last part, but is it it's probably best to get a lot of stuff in writing, correct? Just for everybody knows what's going on.
Absolutely. This comes up from time to time as well, but it's not like agreements are self-executing, right? Like, you know, if you and I have an agreement for, even if, say it's my engagement letter, right? Like, you engage me to help you with legal services, we have an agreement, but the real point of those agreements is not that like the agreement magically like will do something or that. part of it is just that we've actually communicated. We've actually talked about what it is that what's going to happen, how this business relationship will be set up. And it prompts kind of that discussion, right? That's a lot of what these agreements are about. Now, there are provisions, if things go bad, if it's a significant agreement, you do want to know, okay, what are the breakup provisions? What's going to happen? Who's responsible for what? But by putting the agreement in place, hopefully you've talked about that on the front end.
Gotcha. We're gonna kind of turn the corner here and kind of wrap this up. Now, this one is more so, I feel like, for those entrepreneurs who have been in business for a while, but you may need multiple attorneys at different stages of your business, whether it be corporate, employment, regulatory. This is why some clients prefer engaging law firms, because the firm may have multiple areas of expertise. So this seems like this for a seasoned kind of entrepreneur.
Wait, can you repeat the first season part?
Yeah, well, I was saying it might be for a seasoned entrepreneur, for them to have multiple lawyers or engage with a law firm.
Yeah. So let's back up a bit. So one example is, so we just had the question that I avoided about suing, right? Like one example is I'm not a litigator. Like I wouldn't be able to help somebody with that type of claim. Like I've never been to court.
That goes to our first question of make sure you get the right lawyer for what you need.
And most lawyers will tell you right up, they have a place where they're comfortable. So that's okay. But I have lots of colleagues who are, right? And so a lot of times you'll have like you find a lawyer who is pretty well aligned with most of what you need. And then you can ask that person, or that person will say, like, look, this is, if you're really going to, like in my example, like if you're really going to sue this person, then I'm going to refer you, or we're going to work with this other lawyer who does that, right? And so that's how you end up being able to find people. But yeah, you may have a different lawyer for starting your company and operating it than if you buy the building that you're in, right? That may not be the same lawyer. You may need to have a real estate lawyer look at that.
Right.
So all kinds of different things.
Okay. Very cool. Well, today we talked quite a bit about some different aspects when it comes to how to use a lawyer. A few things just to recap. Obviously, Justin told us about make sure you get the right lawyer for what you need. Make sure that you are prepared, with some information in regards to what your need is, because that helps with the, I guess, efficiency of utilizing that relationship to make sure that you don't pay a lot. Sometimes you'll have to use a retainer you'll be put on a retainer fee if that's best for you. Make sure that you're responsive when speaking to a lawyer. You don't want to have the lawyer a lawyer is probably not going to chase you down, but you definitely want to make sure that you're responsive and don't you want to stay top of mind, it sounds like, with a lawyer. Is that correct, Justin?
Yeah, or at least, the same as you would with any other important person in your business, because, and there are some things where there are deadlines. And so the attorney will have to chase you. And so in a way, you're actually running up your own bill if you're not being responsive, right? Because you're like, you have this deadline and the attorney has to chase you for it, and you're paying the attorney to chase you for it. So it is counterproductive. And that happens, that's not, most startups aren't running in that, but there will be things that come up in a business, the same as you need to pay your taxes every year, right? And prepare your return.
Right.
It has to happen at a certain time. There will be deadlines that come up like that. So
before we continue to recap, so this is a good one that we didn't go over. Coming with deadlines and agendas, when you meet with your lawyer for the first time. I guess that's a good idea.
And that doesn't have to be in the first time. So I think one thing is people tend to they don't want to ask, like, how long is this going to take, or like what? And I think it's fine to, ask the lawyer, like, hey, is this something, when do you think we can have a draft of this? Or when do you think this would be? And the lawyer will usually tell you, maybe a few days, it may be a week. Really, it shouldn't be much more than a couple of weeks. If you start getting, if things are taking like a month, like there's probably something wrong there. And now it doesn't mean that it might take a month to do the whole project, because you have back and forth and that kind of thing. But if you're waiting a month for like a draft, or then something might be off there.
Gotcha. Small projects shouldn't take that long, it sounds like. Not a
Right. And so, and it's okay to have a conversation about that.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, I am looking at oh man, we had some
There are more questions in there.
questions come in. Yeah, give me one second.
Well, while you're looking at those, there was one other thing we talked about, which is that's not intuitive, which is that sometimes if you can give the lawyer more time, like a lot, sometimes people think like, okay, I have this project, and if I say, hey, I need this back in 2 days, intuitive, they're like, well, he can't spend that much time on it because it's due in 2 days, right? And that may or may not be true, but a lot of times what'll happen is that actually may make the project more expensive, because if I've got a week, I may be able to take that project and delegate it to an associate who may be half of my rate. But if I've got a project that has to be done in like a day, or has to be done in 2 days, there may not be time for me to do that. And so I may have to do it myself. And so in some ways, you might actually make a project more expensive by trying to put really aggressive time turnarounds on it. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's just something to think about. Now, if it is a real deadline, then by all means, it's good to be upfront about that.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Let me ask, I think we got maybe one final question, and it looks like my lawyer friend Shayna's in the chat helping me out with some questions. So thank you, Shayna. But CC asked, would it be smarter to put a firm on retainer than have a diverse that has a diverse firm of attorneys rather than one specific lawyer? I guess that's a needs-based question, right?
Yeah, so that okay, so there are different ways to look at this, but it's a great question, because what you really need is to identify that a particular lawyer that A, you're comfortable with, and that B, has some expertise in what you're doing day to day. So let's say like 70-80% of what you need, you find a lawyer who's comfortable in those aspects. Then whether they're in a firm that provides all the other services or not, they'll still be able to find you somebody for the other things, right? So it may be that that's really fast if they have somebody in their firm that can do it, and it may add like a day or two if they're not. And honestly, like my firm specializes. We're essentially a corporate IP boutique. So we just help people run businesses, and they tend to be businesses that have a lot of technology or intellectual property related to them. But we have agreements and arrangements with other lawyers who do, for example, tax or environmental or whatever it is, so that we can easily just like bring those people in. So it doesn't necessarily matter if it's a big firm. What matters is that you have your particular projects that you're usually working on, you feel comfortable with those, and then that, have that person help you find anybody else to work with.
Gotcha. Okay, so it sounds like the lawyer should be resourceful in finding whatever else you need to get the project complete. So
right, because the lawyer has an interest in trying to, they'll usually give you a couple options, but sometimes if they have a long working relationship with somebody, they'll loop that person right into the discussion. So because that client relationship is important, right? And so usually the lawyer is going to vet who they're sending you to, because they don't want to jeopardize their relationship with you.
Got it. Okay, so CC, CC, make sure you just start with one lawyer for right now. And let's talk about reaching out to a
And
law
it's too
firm.
hard. Then I guess I should, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but, and it's not like you're working with an entire firm, right? You still want, even if you go to a law firm, and there are all different sizes of law firms, right? Some law firms are one person, and some law firms are 1,000 people, or
Yeah.
1,000 lawyers. You're still going to have one person who you should have one kind of primary contact.
Yep.
Otherwise, it gets pretty crazy, right? Like to be dealing
Crossing
with
wires and everything.
yeah. So you still want to have like one primary person who then gets to know your business, that really become comfortable with, and they know and can help you issue spot as even through your day-to-day things.
Okay, very cool. Well, look, I think today was extremely beneficial, Justin. You have gave us a wealth of information. Hey, if you are still on the line with me, let me know if this was beneficial. We had a lot to join today, so that was awesome. Got some great questions answered. Let me give a few quick announcements. Next week, on next Thursday, the 23rd, we have another lunch and learn that is foundational when you're starting to think about some legal things with your business. And we'll be talking about corporate formation, the importance of corporate formation, and are you ready for separation? So that's going to be a great conversation. And then on the 29th, for all of you that have been asking questions today about contracts, we have our contracts class March 29th. More information will be coming out about that, so be on the lookout. Justin, I think you told us what firm you were at. You were at. Is there a way we can contact you?
Yeah, and I'm gonna put it's Cruz Abrams Siegel, and I'm Justin McNaughton.
Yep.
And I guess with the recording of this,
And
we get the rest of my contact information and stuff.
yeah, no, I can add it. Yeah, I can add it to the details of this post. Are you on LinkedIn as well?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Okay, very cool. Well, let me wrap this live stream up. Corner to Corner family, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been How to Use a Lawyer. If you do have some more questions as far as that is concerned, just shoot me an email and we'll get those questions answered for you. We want to make sure that we can continue to provide impactful information to help you get to the next level. So thank you so much. Justin, stay on with me for a second. Corner to Corner family, we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.